Yeah, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting me back to the Western Regional, especially since it's 105 degrees in Knoxville, Tennessee right now. Appreciate that. It was great landing last night at 1 a.m. The only few places in the world you land at 1 a.m. and the sun's still shining. It's great, you know. You don't know a little bit about me. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and it's interesting because my father now lives in Smithers, British Columbia, which you would think would be somewhat close to here, which is almost 1,400 miles, I found out. But, you know, my dad, it wasn't cold enough in northern Wisconsin, so he had to move to British Columbia. You know, it's a great thing. So we're going to give you an update on the Pathways Commission. I can tell you that I'm very pleased to say that the report's in its final stages. Matter of fact, it's being printed as we speak. Hopefully we're going to release this around August 2nd. Is kind of the target date around there. And so this is why these slides were prepared a little beforehand. Some of this has been ironed out pretty well. So again, I have to use this nomenclature here because my folks still don't trust what I say when I get up here. So there it is, the legalese. This is our website. Again, if anybody wants to get on and add their contributions to what I'm going to talk about today, we'd really appreciate it. We've been trying to get input and still are trying to encourage input. Just briefly, and I'm going to get to the recommendations pretty quickly here. I just want to give you a little background about where this all started. Again, this was started with the U.S. Treasury Advisory Committee hearings on the auditing profession. And one of the human capital recommendations was to encourage the AICPA and AAA to form a commission to study the future structure of higher education and accounting in the U.S. But notice at the bottom of that, and just so we're all clear, is that it said it was for the accounting profession, not the auditing profession. So we took that as a broadly defined goal. One thing I will have to tell you, I just talked to Gary Prevance this last week. You know, all the things and recommendations that were, if you've ever had a chance to read that, there's a lot of things in that Treasury report. This was the only thing that actually has come out of there as an official activity so far to date. So we feel pretty proud about that. Again, this was the study of the future structure of higher education. And I want to outline the words there again, broadly defined. Again, more than just CPAs, and you'll see more about that in a bit. One of the things, everybody, I had the honor and privilege of reading a lot of history. You know, a lot of us, I know there's some history buffs out in the audience. You know, there's a lot of things to be learned by historical perspective on things. There's been over 20 attempts to change accounting education in the last 80 years. And some of these, Horizons Commission, Bedford, Accounting Education Change Commission. I want to just stop here. Has anybody ever read anything from the Horizons or Bedford Commission reports? All right, we got a couple. Are you academics or? Yeah, all right. These were some instrumental people in our field. You're going to find out very quickly that trying to change not just accounting education, but anything in higher education is challenging to say the least. One of the things that'll be coming out right after August in Issues in Accounting Education, Bill Black, as part of the reference material for this project, put all this historical information in context, and this was all standard reading for everybody on the commission. All right, so here's the recommendations. And again, this is kind of my views on this. This one, to me, is the most important recommendation as a profession that we can have. Build a learned profession, all right? Well, what does that mean? What is a learned profession? If you look at law, medicine, engineering, right? The idea that the practice of what you're in and the academic endeavors are working on the same projects, the same issues, is really important. And I'm sorry to say, as a profession, we have a good student supply base, but our profession, our academic world and our practitioner world are 180 degrees in opposite directions. And it's killing us as a profession. It just is, right? If at the University of Tennessee, I teach in the Physician Executive MBA program. I give a lot of presentations to a lot of doctors, right? And after that, I always try to sit in the audience, in a couple sessions. And if you do that, I'm sitting in, and by the way, the last one I went to was a urology conference. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. It was pretty disgusting. But anyway, I sat through it. But the point is, right next to me, right, is an academic. On the other side of me is a practitioner, the surgeon, and they're trying to solve the same problem. They're working together, right? If you go in any urology practice and you go into their office, right, you look on the desk, there'll be the New England Journal of Medicine, there'll be the Urology Specialty Journal, and they use that to benefit their practice on a daily basis. So take accounting now, right? Our number one academic journal in accounting is the Accounting Review. Now, okay, I don't want the academics raising their hands this time, right? How many non-academics have actually read the Accounting Review? Our number one person, two people, right? How many of those two people who just raised your hands use it every day to change the practice of accounting? No, right? And this is a big problem, right? If you think about all these other professions, engineering, right? The academics and the practitioners are really close together trying to solve the problems on stress about building a bridge, for example. And yet in accounting, and by the way, there's a lot of reasons on both sides of the aisle why this exists. But if this doesn't change fundamentally, our profession is going to go away, right? It's going to become a vocation. And I'm telling you, there's impediments that we can work on to change, and that's what we talk about in our report. Now, why does this exist? Okay, I'm going to spend a little time on this one because it's really important to me, right? Part of this on both sides of the aisle. One of the things is we have a lot of confidentiality reasons why, if you look at the healthcare business, right, you look at law, they can get data to work with, right? But our data, our play field for research is company data a lot of times. And there's reasons, obviously, why it's difficult to get that. But think about if we could ever, as academics, right, get to the point where we could work close hand in hand with the technical problems that you're having on a daily basis, right? And actually put our knowledge and skill sets to use in that, it'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? But again, on problems on our side is we have, for example, anything that we get published takes 3 years to get published. That's ridiculous, right? The time frame of turnaround of getting practical things to your benefit is troubling, right? So there's things on both sides of the aisle here that we really have to work on, and but if we don't take care of this one, you guys, this is a big issue. So I hope, and again, we have a lot of things that we talk about how to improve this in the report. So strong linkages between research and practice and education research. Closing the loop, right? Bringing this knowledge to our students that they know what's going on currently, right? And integrating what we do so that we can wouldn't it be great if academics could actually publish things that lead and help practice once in a while, right? That would be a meaningful endeavor. So, develop mechanisms to meet future demand. Okay, this is all about, we have a shortage of professors down the road, right? Everybody's been hearing about this. There's been a bunch of things addressing this out there to try to get more academics. But here again is we're killing ourselves as a profession, right? Because what happens, and let me go back also to the earlier one. One of the things, I don't know if you knew this, that really changed, back in the 70s, okay, if I picked up an accounting review in the 1960s, which Gary Previtz made me do and read, it's amazing how it's changed, because back in the 60s, the #1 journal in accounting, the lead title, for example, the one I had, was Jerry Wygant, who was my professor at Wisconsin, talking about what is the best way to account for leases, was the lead article in the Accounting Review. Now, if you look at the Accounting Review, it's all math. Nobody can understand it except for other academics. Why is that? And I'll come back to this in a minute, but you need to understand the perspective of where this came from. Because all your kids, you guys have gone through educational systems. We had to compete as an academic unit within a college of business. When I say compete, we have to compete at a research level with finance, economics, and so we had to change our research paradigms in order for faculty to be treated at a high level within a business school. And that's what all changed all this. Now, this gets back to this one. You know, we have a system that, and I don't know if you even know this, but to get tenure at almost any institution, they're almost making this that every professor in accounting has to publish in these 3 top accounting journals in the US. Now think about this. This is like every faculty member on the planet trying to get published in basically 3 or 4 top journals. It's nuts. One of my PhD students is now at the University of Texas, El Paso. I talked to him yesterday before I came up. They're actually, now this is nothing against University of Texas, El Paso, right? But here's a school that's just decided that they're going to change their whole fundamental methodology at their school towards research to compete with the University of Texas, Austin, right? So now all their faculty have to get the same number of A-level hits, right, to do this. It's pretty amazing. And you know, this is one other thing too. And you think about all these like state schools we have in Wisconsin and Tennessee. Why is it that everybody in these schools has to compete and have the same standards as somebody coming out of the University of Texas, Illinois, Wisconsin, I could go Oregon, Washington, right? We're just killing ourselves, right? There should be different ways, different schools should have different approaches to making promotion and tenure decisions at their various schools. Now to do that, what's the deal? Well, now there's going to be different terminal degrees that you can have. You're already seeing that pop up. Georgia State, Kennesaw State, Case Western, right? So you could come back and actually get a PhD in accounting and go teach on a very good track at a university. Now at the University of Tennessee, yeah, by the way, I'm just now interim department chair too. I put the words on interim, right? But it's interesting to see, and I wasn't totally aware of this, but our spectrum of faculty at the University of Tennessee, we have a lecturer track that has lecturer, senior lecturer, distinguished lecturer. We're going to have a clinical or professional track that people that can go out and get different types of terminal degrees, right, and have a progression promotion track, and then a tenure track, right? So even us at the University of Tennessee has a different grouping of faculty to make this happen, to make sure our students are prepared for all the work world that you guys have out there. So there's different ways of doing this, and it's happening right now, but in order for us, and by the way, do you know what the average age of the tenure track professoriate is in the United States right now? I just talked to my friend Jim Hasselback. It's 58 years old. 58 years old. I'm the youngster, right? So, this is going to be a continual problem, and we got to have ways to deal with it. This one, I think everybody's going to fall out of their chair here, right? This is actually one of our recommendations. And you guys may laugh at this a little bit, but I get more grief over this one than any one other recommendations when I go on the road. All right? Teaching should be just as respected as research in institutions, right? Now listen, I love teaching, right? I got into this for teaching. I love students, but I do not get rewarded for teaching. I get rewarded for doing research. Typical situation in most universities. Matter of fact, one of the things I heard just recently, just to give you an idea how bad this is at some universities, I won't say the university, but at this university, they actually have a reward system and penalty system for getting tenure at their university. And if you publish in a practitioner journal, you get minus 10 points every time you do that going up for tenure. Now, do you believe this? This is what's going on in our world, right? The idea that we should be getting closer and you're actually getting penalized for publishing practical research, it's pretty amazing. So this one, look at this. You're all sitting there going, all right? In universities, the thing that gets rewarded is research. Why is that? Well, right now, if you look at tenure-track faculty, there's a way to externally review what faculty does in research, right? We send out letters, we get people's responses to see whether or not they're doing good stuff. Why can't we do that for teaching? Why can't we make a market for good teaching like there is a market for good research, right? If you think about this in universities, I actually, my daughter, I couldn't get her to go to the University of Tennessee. She went to the University of Texas, right, for her school. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry about that, but there's been a lot of challenges in my household over the years. But if you look at this, I was down there for the graduation ceremonies, and they had a number. We have a number of endowed chairs for research at the University of Tennessee. They had over 20 endowed chairs for outstanding teachers at the University of Texas. So you think about this, those are the types of things, we have to have models to evaluate good teaching, systems for rewarding good teaching, right? On the same level, a matter of fact, most universities, I heard this more than enough, that if you win a teaching award as an assistant professor at any university, you're done, right? From a promotion standpoint. That's how bad it's getting, right? So this whole system of getting research and teaching on the same basis is just needed. But we need, and by the way, for my research colleagues in the audience, I am not saying that we do away with research for our profession, for our schools, for our departments. But what it is saying is that we need to raise the level of teaching in each of these places. All right, this one, there's a lot of things that go on with this one about, this is all about curriculum, teaching. This thing is so important. The context of changing, everybody talks about global change, technology change. Going through this pathways thing, we had a session with 3 CEOs of tech firms from California who are CPAs that came in and talked to us about the issues with technology. Now, I love technology. They scared the dickens out of me, right, about where this is headed. And we're just not changing fast enough. Yeah, we're getting, okay, great, we can get iPad in school. That's not the point of this, right? There's more changing all the time. And even in our department, we're the Department of Accounting and Information Management. And by the way, I had a conference call at 6 a.m., which was 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? This is one of the questions that was asked to me. And I said, our department is the Department of Accounting and Information Management. 20 years from now, it could be the Department of Information Management and Accounting, the way this is headed. And so, and also technology, but also kids. I tell this story. I took 4 18-year-old teenage boys, drove from Knoxville, Tennessee to Breckenridge, Colorado over spring break in a truck. Now, have any of you ever done that before? Would you like to come along next time? Because I could have killed all of them by the time we got back, right? But the point, these kids today, Matt was one of them. I called Matt Friday night, on a cell phone, tell him to make sure he was there because we were leaving at 6 a.m. on Saturday. So I call Matt, and I get it on his answering service for his cell phone. He goes, please don't ever call me again. This is his message on his cell phone. He said, only just text me. And I'm like, what is this world coming to, all of you have kids that are just texting everybody, right? And out there, the whole thing was Twitter. I'm like, they were like taking pictures and tweeting and see how many followers they could have in 1 week's time. And I'm like, oh my, that's the last thing in the world I want, right? But our kids are changing. The technology is changing. Everything's changing. And we as academics, get blamed for this a lot, but change, we have to incorporate change a lot quicker. And there are ways that we can actually do that. I always go over, so I'm doing okay, good. All right. Improve the ability to attract high potential diverse entrants into the profession. Well, this is something that we all know, right? If you think about our diversity efforts, I think in accounting, and most of the organizations could agree, we need to do a better job. Conversation I had this morning at 6 a.m., we need to do a better job in universities of this, because you guys, we are competing in the high schools, in middle schools, right, for talent. My son, he's in an academy, right? He had to choose which path he was going down in 7th grade. And so what do we have in high schools? We don't have an accounting curriculum like STEM, right? Well, there's a movement afloat, if you can picture this. We want them STEM to STEAM, right? Put accounting in that formula to start off with, right? If we don't start capturing this talent pool that's deciding to go into health sciences, engineering, 80% of our population down the road. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but this really scares me. Norm Augustine, who wrote engineering, and if you haven't read that, you got to read that report. It's really amazing. The Gathering Storm, right? In that report, they did a study that they were losing almost 70% of their students by 3rd grade. Why? Because that's when they turn off their math brains. They decide that they're not good at math or whatever reasons, but this is done in 3rd grade already. So are we going to get down to 3rd grade? I don't know. But if you're thinking about our talent pool and diversity, et cetera, down the road, there's a lot of things we can do. One of the things that just amazed me in this process was from a diversity perspective, one of the things that they had problems about was this FAFSA form, right? Students that are economically challenged, et cetera, this has been a government study, they can't fill out the FAFSA form, so they don't get into college or whatever, right? Well, there's things that we can do about that, right? There are things we can do about that. Notice up there is AP accounting class. I never thought I could actually say this, but I actually think this is going to happen. This has been going on for years. Dan Dinas from Kansas State has been working diligently to try to make this happen, but there's been a group recently that's talked to the college board, and I think this is going to happen down the road. So if you think about having That's another thing. We have this accounting class that's out there. What's a kid going to do? Take this accounting class or take an AP physics or AP psychology? Because they get what? Extra credit for it, extra grades, and then you got this accounting class you're going to get penalized for right now. Another thing we can do, AP accounting class. So there's a lot of things in here to. This one really amazed me too, going through this process. We have a lot of organizations that collect various and sundry information. We're going to ask the question, what is our market for accountants? No one can answer that, right? I mean, we do a supply and demand, NASBA does things, AAA does things. But if you ask, what is the for all accountants out there? What do they do? What's going on? Who do they compete with? You can't answer those questions, right? Until now. Now we have the ability through a lot of different things. There was a University of Tennessee, we're just one of the schools to get this Race to the Top educational grant. So I've been working with Bill Fox, who's our CBER director. I didn't realize all the capabilities that we have. They've done certain reports for the surrounding states, but now you can use workers' compensation, Social Security information, obviously aggregated, but you can now track people from college, career. Okay, did they get an accounting degree? Did they get a Mac degree? Did they get, hopefully, a CPA now, right? How did their careers present? Where did they go? Did they get out of accounting? But now you can track all the accounting majors in the U.S. and see what that market looks like. What are they doing? How they're successful? What's the value of this education? Those type questions are, to me, critical to life. And lastly, this is the most important one. I have to be honest with you, we originally had this kind of like the number one, right? If you look at all the past efforts to change accounting education the years, the one thing that they didn't have is a structure to sustain the efforts. If you look at this process, I've been at this now 2.5 years of my life, right? And I have to be honest, you go through all this, it's exhilarating and exhausting, right? To a certain degree. You get to this point that will make sure that these efforts continue in the future. And I can say that we have that structure in place. It's not totally fleshed out yet, but there will be a so-called pathways